Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. In the description of this video, you can find my compiled link. Through there, you can find ways to support the channel, my other social media, and more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back another video. We're doing a first thoughts today. This first thoughts is on Baba Lysaga Night Witch. This commander, at first, I thought was just going to be way too difficult to build. Dug into it a little bit. I'm super excited about this commander. I think it's actually going to be really, really fun. First of all, sack up to 3 permanents. If there were 3 or more card types among the sacrificed permanents, each opponent loses 3 life, you gain 3 life, and you draw 3 cards. So, up to 3 permanents. So that means you can sack 1 permanent if you want to. You can sack 2. But you want to hit that threshold of 3 card types. There are 6 card types that you could sacrifice. And those are land, creature, artifact, enchantment, tribal, and planeswalker. Those are your options. Planeswalkers are pretty hard to recur, so I wouldn't recommend that. Tribal, there's so few of them. Some of them could be worthwhile putting into the deck, but that's not a reliable strategy. So you have land, creature, artifact, enchantment. After doing a good amount of research, enchantment didn't work out super well. There wasn't that much there for recursion and stuff. It just wouldn't have worked out that well. There's a few enchantments that are worthwhile running, but an enchantment theme in the deck doesn't work that well. So I went with land, creature, and artifact as the main 3 card types that you're going to be using to sacrifice off of Baba to draw cards and drain your opponents. I specifically went more with the land route because land seems like a really fun way to do it. And it seems like the best way to get more card types on less permanents, so you only had to sacrifice 1 or 2 permanents to activate Baba. So the categories I'll be talking about today are land-based stuff that works really well with this deck. Then ways to play additional lands each turn. Creatures that you can recur, because you're going to need a creature to sacrifice. You're going to probably need 2 permanents to sacrifice. Some cards that work well with sacrificing creatures, some life gain synergies, some untappers, and some one-off cards. So we're going to hop right into the land-based stuff. Starting with the lands that have multiple types that work really well in this deck. First off, Blink Moth Nexus, Dread Statuary, Frostwalk Bastion, Ink Moth Nexus, and Mishra's Factory. These are all lands that if you activate them, they become artifact creatures that are still lands. Land, artifact, creature, that's 3 types. You can sacrifice 1 permanent, being one of these, to Baba to get the effect. So that's amazing. So like Blink Moth Nexus, you pay 1 mana, it becomes an artifact creature land, and then you can tap Baba, sack it, draw 3 cards. That's Ancestral Recall with upside. That's awesome. Those are auto includes in this deck. This deck's going to revolve around trying to get those into your graveyard, get those into your hand, and utilizing them as much as possible, and getting them back and forth from your graveyard into play over and over and over again. I love it. Some other lands that can act as 2 of the necessary permanent types. You have Urza's Saga, land enchantment. It's the only land enchantment. Then you have some artifact lands in Dark Moss Bridge, Darksteel Citadel, Power Depot, Treasure Vault, Tree of Tales, Vault of Whispers, and you have 1 creature land in Dryad Arbor. So you're going to most likely need to have creatures alongside your lands to sacrifice unless you have one of the triple lands. But you're going to be sacrificing a lot of lands, so you're going to need ways to get those lands back. Some ways you can do that include Groundskeeper. This one's meh because it can only get back basics, but in a pinch it'll be helpful. Life from the Loam, auto include, very important card for this deck. The Mending and Dominaria, seems fantastic. Then you have Witherbloom Command, pretty cool card there. World Shaper, Ancient Green Warden, Crucible of Worlds, and Ramanop Excavator all let you play lands from your graveyard. Those are going to be super important for this deck. That's going to be like the bread and butter. You're going to just Crucible of Worlds, Blink Moth Nexus, turn on Blink Moth Nexus, sack it, draw 3 cards, Crucible of Worlds it back into play. That's the game plan right now. That's what you're doing. Really powerful stuff there. You also have Aranis, new card. Seems really sweet in this deck, could work out very well. Next, I'm going to talk about some cards that synergize really well with lands entering the battlefield and going to your graveyard. First off, you have Bloodghast and Skyclave Shade. Both of those can act as creatures that are recurable when a land enters the battlefield under your control, and then you can sacrifice it and the land, and then replay the land from your graveyard. It comes back, good sacrifice synergy there. Then, with your lands going to your graveyard, you have Gitrog Monster, Titania, Turntimber Sower, and Crawling Sensation. All of those seem fantastic. Titania, Turntimber, and Crawling Sensation create creature tokens that you can then sacrifice to Baba. So if you have an artifact land, that's 3 permanent types right there. Love it. Then you have some other ways to make tokens off of your lands, including cards like Field of the Dead, and then a bunch of landfall cards like Rampaging Baloths. You have Scoot Swarm, Spore Mound, Zendikar's Royal, and then not actually creatures being made here, but Tireless Provisioner and Tireless Tracker can create artifacts, which in a pinch can be very helpful in this deck. Then you also have Dakmor Salvage and Drownyard Temple, which are lands that you can just straight up recur from the graveyard, which are pretty convenient. And then Centaur Vinecrasher, just a pretty cool card here. When a land goes to your graveyard, you can get it back, and it's just kind of a recurable card like that. Now I'm going to be talking about ways to play additional lands each turn. Since you're sacrificing lands, if you don't have a way to play additional lands each turn, you might start falling behind the rest of the table. So cards like Azusa, Druid's Class, Dryad of Elysian Grove, Exploration, Oracle Moldaya, and Wayward Swordtooth should all be heavily considered for this deck. Those can be very helpful, especially with the Crucible of Worlds. Very nice. Very, very nice includes there. Now I'm going to talk about some creatures that have good recursion. You have Brackish Trudge, which since you're gaining life with this deck, comes back when you gain life. Seems very synergistic, very powerful. Nether Trader, Brood of Cockroaches, goes back to your hand. Silver Smoke Ghoul, same thing with Brackish Trudge, life gain synergy. And Tenacious Underdog. Tenacious Underdog is really cool because you can blitz it from the graveyard and that'll give you an additional card draw as well, which is super nice. So that's 4 cards that you're drawing. And you're going to be sacrificing a lot of creatures, so you might as well capitalize on that with cards like Blood Artist and Bastion of Remembrance to drain your opponents even further. You have Black Market and Pitiless Plunderer to generate mana. Pitiless Plunderer also makes artifacts which could be useful for sacrificing. Blightmound and Pawn of Ulamog give you creature tokens which could be useful. Dark Prophecy and Liliana give you extra card draw. Dictative Erebos and Grave Pact can whittle down your opponent's board states. And Eudora just seems pretty sweet. It turns your creatures that die into land, so then you can sacrifice them and they count as a land being sacrificed. That's pretty decent. It's pretty decent. Also triggers your landfall stuff, triggers lands going into your graveyard. Highly synergistic in the deck. Now I'm going to be talking about the life gain synergies. Blossoming Bog Beast can just be a finisher in this deck. Really cool. Dina, more drain. Trudge Garden, just token generation. Witchvein Coven, more recursion off your life gain. And then Veto, more draining. Now I'm going to be talking about ways to untap Baba, so that way you can activate Baba more than once in a turn. You have Magerite Stone, Sereth, Seedborn Muse, love that, Thornbite Staff. You're going to be sacrificing creatures most likely with Baba, so as long as Baba's got the Thornbite Staff, it's going to untap itself when you activate it, so you can activate it more than once in a turn and potentially just drain a huge chunk of your opponent's life totals while drawing a huge amount of cards. Also, Thornbite Staff is a tribal card, so in a pinch, you can sacrifice Thornbite Staff as an artifact tribal. Ooh, really funny there. And then Thousand Year Elixir also gives Baba haste, which is really nice. Another way you can give Baba haste is Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, and Concordant Crossroads. Good stuff. And now we're on to the one-off cards. Skull Clamp. Draw 2 extra cards. 5 cards. That's awesome. I love that. Ordeal of Nylea. Doesn't matter how you sacrifice Ordeal of Nylea, you'll get the sacrifice trigger as long as it's sacrificed, so it works really well as an enchantment to sacrifice. Some other enchantments that work really well as sacrifice include Rancor, Aspect of Mongoose, Despondency, Glistening Oil, and Spreading Algae, because all of those go back to your hand when they hit the graveyard. So you can play a Rancor when you're on Baba, tap Baba, sack a land that's an artifact, and also sacrifice a Rancor. Rancor will just go right back to your hand. That's amazing. Really, really good include in this deck. Auto include in this deck. Then you have cards like Mycosynth Lattice, Ashaya, Liquid Metal Coating, Liquid Metal Torque, and Mere Landshaper. All of those can grant other card types to your cards. So like Mycosynth Lattice can turn all of your creatures into artifacts. Ashaya can turn all your creatures into lands. Just that way you can just get multiple typings on your stuff and lower the amount of permanents you need to sacrifice with Baba. This is a fantastic deck for the Exquisite Blood Sanguine Bond combo because either of them are very powerful in play if you activate Baba, but both of them just win you the game. Really, really nice to include there. Wound Reflection and Archfiend Despair seem very powerful here as well. If you can activate Baba 3 times in a turn, drain 9 life from your opponents, then double that up at the end of turn, that's huge. That's so swingy. You can just out of nowhere win the game with one of those. And since you're going to be drawing cards, you can run cards like Yoriel and Psychosis Crawler for some extra synergies there. And the last card I want to talk about is Gingerbread Cabin. This is pretty interesting. The land, when it enters the battlefield, it creates an artifact. So that gives you the land artifact. You can kind of count it as an artifact land, even though it's not. It is technically you sacrificing 2 permanents, but one's a food token that you don't really care about, and it came for free off of the land that you're sacrificing and can replay and get the food back again. So that's a really cool little include there. And that is everything I have for Baba Lysaga Night Witch. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, everybody.